3, Mr. Mayor. By Councilor Longo, that council adopt the agendas as published on February 13th, 2020, and all versions published February 18th, 2020.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mayor's remarks. On Saturday, February 8th, I had the pleasure of participating in Chorus Niagara's annual Sing-a-thon fundraiser as their special guest conductor. This was a 5-hour marathon of music and singing at the Welland Seaway Mall. I didn't do the whole 5 hours. Congratulations to our city employees who participated in the annual Mayor's Cup hockey tournament in Port Colborne. And great effort by the boys. Monday, February 10th, I had the honor of being a guest speaker at Royal LePage's 2020 kickoff meeting, where we spoke to the realtors about growth and infrastructure in our community and attracting new business and future plans for Thorold and Niagara. And I had the pleasure of Councilor Longo was there as well. I would like to thank our Station 2 Thorold South volunteer firefighters for hosting their annual Family Day pancake breakfast and the Port Robinson Community Center for hosting their annual pasta dinner. Both events were very well attended, and we had many councillors out at them events. I seen Councillor Sentence, Councillor Neal out at both events. Councillor Hanley was at the pasta dinner. Did I miss anyone else that was out at those events? Councillor DeRose? At the dinner as well. There was also 2 free skates at the Doherty Arena, and I attended the second skate, which had a great crowd. I don't know how the morning crowd was, but the crowd in the afternoon was very, very well attended. Tomorrow evening, the library is holding their feasibility study presentation from 5 to 7 p.m. at our library in downtown Thorold. The presentation will actually take place at 5:30. Please note, the Ministry of Transportation will be closing the Thorold Tunnel from February 19th to 21st between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. And just of note, the tunnel will be open all day, especially during the busiest times of the commuter traffic, but at 8 at night until 5 a.m. in the morning from the 19th to the 21st. Finally, on Wednesday, February 26th is Pink Shirt Day in recognition of Anti-Bullying Day. We encourage everyone to wear pink to symbolize a stand against bullying. It is so important that victims of bullying know they are not alone and there is help and support available. Wearing pink on this day sends a strong message to them that others care. Often the simple act of wearing a shirt can start conversations, and conversations can be a big step forwards towards healing and helping. Our next council meeting will be Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020. And next on the agenda, we have a regional council update, and I'd like to welcome Councillor Tim Whalen to the podium, and he's going to give us an update from the region as well as the Thorold Sports Runway Recognition Dinner that's coming up in March. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry. I think you try again. It's great to be here tonight on behalf of the city, or the region, and as well as the runway of recognition. Wearing both hats tonight, I'd just like to give you a little update of what's happened at the region as far as the budget is concerned. Before I start, I'd like to compliment this council on the work they've done at the city level. Nobody likes to pay taxes, and even more so, people hate to pay an increase in taxes. So you did a wonderful job bringing in what you did, and I'd just like to update on what happened at the regional level. Again, nobody liked to raise taxes at that level either. We came in at 5.92%. Now, go along with that, there was a lot of deferrals that happened year over year. It was time to bite the bullet. Of that, we had a capital budget increase of $375 million. $159 million went into long-term care facilities, which includes the revamping of the Lynn Haven home in St. Catharines and the Gilmore home in Fort Erie. Both were deferred year after year, so it's about time to get updated. I'm sure a lot of people around this table will need one of those homes quite soon, right, Councillor Neal? So,
Oh,
but on the serious side, they were well overdue and in dire need of renovation, so they'll both be revamped, especially the one in Fort Erie to be to a new site with a new location. We've got 16 million being put in the Casablanca Boulevard widening in Winona, this side of Grimsby, and then a $10 million upgrade of the Port Dalhousie wastewater development and the plant upgrade. $8.3 million is put into road restructuring and strengthening program. $7.6 million in the Stanford sewer trunk rehabilitation, and $6 million in reconstruction of the Thorold Stone Road. The addition, I believe, to be on the Gale Center over to Great Wolf Lodge to open things up for the GO station when that area gets opened up widely. And $5 million in the Port Colborne water treatment plant. So like I say, this is a little over almost $400 million, which increase in this area. So the $5.6 million went into a special levy for the long-term care facilities alone for future development. So the 5.92% was a rough pill to swallow, but a necessary evil. So putting that together, what the great work that you did at this level, bringing the whole tax burden onto the city of Thorold is at less than 5%, which is a great, especially the work that you've got planned for this upcoming year. So congratulations on behalf of the region to complement what we're doing. So a lot is going to be done over the next year, which is, I'm sure the citizens of Thorold have a lot to look forward to. So I don't know if there's any questions with that respect. If there is, I'd be more than happy to.
go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to infrastructure, it's great to see the region doing infrastructure. Has yourself or the mayor, what are we doing about infrastructure along our Highway 20 corridor in Thorold, where we still have no water, no sewers? Nobody in Port Robinson West has water or sewers, but yet Pelham is building a brand new tool pad arena right next to our boundaries, yet we cannot have no facilities ourselves. Can you answer me why is that? When the resource is right there beside us at the boundary? When are we going to do something for infrastructure and spending capital monies in our municipality?
Maybe we can pass that off to the mayor. He's just on public work, so I'm sorry to catch you off guard there, Mr. Mayor, but.
Since you were
we
talking
met-
about infrastructure,
There
how
was
much
a
money
re-
we spend everywhere else.
There was a resolution that came from this council that when this region's going through the official plan review right now, that our requests be considered as part of the official plan for the new official plan of the region. And they're going through the official plan procedure now, and there's open houses, Councillor Hanley, so you'd be more than welcome to go and make comment.
Well, if you could send me those open house dates, because I'd love to go comment, because if any municipality has suffered as far as highway commercial expansion and the ability to be successful as other municipalities are, it's our municipality here in Thorold.
100% right, Councillor Hamilton.
Can I ask you in regards to the garbage detail, in regards to the 35% increase, but yet the only thing that's changed is that we're going to be picking up garbage every 2 weeks. Basically, other than that, if I can say, when the lady came here and made their presentation to council, I had actually stated that it was actually an exercise in utility because they really weren't going to change anything, which they didn't, other than they didn't go to clear garbage bags. So with a 35% increase, how do you think that reflects on the service that we're actually getting? Because to me, personally, we're getting less service for more money.
The problem with that, Councillor Hanley, is that the increase in the new contract went up $3.5 million, 9.9%. Along with that, the drop in the market price for sale of recyclables had an impact on that also. So that's where the impact comes from. So we're hopeful that most of the residents get on board with the recycling, and we can have some income coming back to us.
If I could ask through you, since you're regional representative, Mr. Mayor, I think Mayor Diodati makes a good point about innovation, and that I think we need to get the public works at the region looking at innovative ways to recycling garbage and that stuff. They've been there for 40 years and they still haven't tackled the beast. So maybe, hopefully, they can do it within the next 40.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Anyone
Councillor
else
Hanley.
have any questions? Seeing none, go on to your second item, Councillor, and that is the runway of recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to reiterate once again this year's nominees, if you don't mind. They've been hit or processed bit by pieces, and I'd like to formally put everything in one page for you, just to let you know who's going in and just a little bit of their background. First of all, our regular inductees, we've got 5 again this year. Our first one is Errol McGibbon. He was a Cornell University Ivy League School goaltender and an Allen Cup champion. And it just by happened that he played 3 years with Cornell University, and he was replaced by Ken Dryden. So he's got some great tenure behind him. We're looking forward to finally getting Errol into our Wall of Fame. Our next inductee is Phil Persia. I'm sure everybody around this room knows Phil, or knew Phil while he was with us. He played for Junior B in Thorold. He was with the OHL and East Coast League, and was a great hockey player. Our next inductee is the 1970-71 midget hockey team. They were Silver Stick International champions. Now everybody says, well, did they win the OMHAs that year? Unfortunately not. But back in the 1970s, it was more of a feat to win the Silver Stick. It was an international tournament other than just an Ontario championship. So we look forward to having them into the wall also. And finally, we have Ryan Cervelli. I'm sure a lot of people know Ryan also from his real estate here in Thorold. He's a gold, silver medalist at OFSA. He's a captain of the NCAA Division I Holy Cross basketball team, where he attended on a full scholarship. And our last inductee is Paul Cicchini. If you see a little guy that night, don't offer to arm wrestle him. He's a Canadian arm wrestling champion with 11 national titles. So apparently, I haven't seen him the last couple of years, but apparently he's not that big of a fellow, but he's quite potent with his arms. And then our special award winners this year, we have a Daryl Merrill Award for Coaching Excellence, which is going to Bill Maher. Our Irene McGinnis Female Athlete of the Year, Councillor Longo can back me on this one, going to his daughter, Julia Longo, well-respected girl. And then our Wolf Slater Male Athlete of the Year is going to Randy Gazzola. Wolf was probably one of the main reasons why this committee exists today, and unfortunately he passed away about 3 weeks ago, and just shy of his 90th birthday, and won't be here to attend it. I think he's missed one in the 13 years we've had so far, so he will definitely be missed. And then the Recognition Committee's Team of the Year, which will be going to the Thorold BB Bantam hockey team, which unfortunately got to the OMHA championships last year but did not win. So just keep in mind that our dinner is on March 31st. On the down but plus side is we've outsold our tickets from last year already with 5 weeks left to go. So there's a good chance these tickets will sell out this year. So if you've got plans to go and you'd like a great night out, $20 all you can eat spaghetti supper, there's still some available at the Thorold Credit Union. Be more than happy to set them aside for you or sell you a ticket. Other than that, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Any questions for Councillor Whalen? I can tell you about Will Slater. He sent me last year. He called me and it's in the mayor's office. He sent me a baseball bat that he had that was manufactured in Thorold, and it's got a plate on it, manufactured in Thorold in the 1930s. So I got it proudly displayed in the mayor's office now, but he wanted it, out on display so some people could see it. So I'll actually maybe. I should bring it to the runway recognition.
Tell truth, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to give it up, we'd be more than proud to display it in our arena in our display.
That would be that's probably a better place for it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to adoption of minutes. Budget meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2020. Councillor Neal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Seton, that the budget meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2020 be hereby adopted.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Budget meeting minutes of January 28th, 2020. Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Seton, that the budget minutes of January 28th, 2020 be hereby adopted.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Council and General Committee meeting minutes of February 4th, 2020. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Longo, that this meeting, wrong one, not the adjourned one. Oh, a little too quick on that, sorry. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hanley, that the regular council and general committee meeting minutes of February 4th, 2020 be hereby adopted.
Again, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we're going to defer the Planning and Development Service Public Forum Committee meeting minutes of February 4th until after the presentation. Moving on, any declarations of interest? Seeing none, there's no public meetings, no civic recognition. Presentations. I have Paul and Fran Doherty, residents, to speak to Planning and Development Services Public Forum Committee meeting minutes of February 4th, 2020, and welcome to the podium.
Is it changed that? Okay. Good evening, Mayor Ugolini, City Council, and City staff. My name is Paul Doherty, the owner of 35 Honey Locust in Thorold. I would like to respectfully request an exemption of bylaw section 3 concerning privacy screens, and that the recommendation of the Planning and Development Services Public Forum meeting of February 4th, 2020 not be accepted. I'd like to present to you today a slideshow of my backyard and the structure that is under review. Starting with my rear plot plan, my lot is 50 feet 3 inches wide, and the rear property line is located 29 feet 6 inches and 3/4 from the back of my house. The pool dimension is 30 feet by 12 feet. It is set back just over 4 feet from the southwest rear property lines. This provides a 3-foot walkway along the pool side at these locations. I've shown the 6 by 8 wooden posts that support the seasonal curtains. They are set back 1 foot from the property lines. This is a wide-angle view of my backyard taken from my deck before the construction of the pool. I can see into each of my neighbors' yards. This is not a positive in my mind because it's unavoidable due to the different elevations of our lots. Now, the 6 neighbors that I can see from my deck, 4 of them have pools, all of which adjoin my property at the rear and side lot lines. Unfortunately, when I am using my deck, I'm able to view my neighbors using their pools and backyards. As a private person with a respect for privacy and personal space, I find it awkward and uncomfortable barbecuing on my own deck. I don't want my neighbors to think that I am watching them. And for this very reason, I've hesitated for years to put in my own pool. Until last year, when I designed the seasonal curtains. A clean, innovative, and attractive way of protecting everyone from unwanted viewing during the summer seasons. As a designer and builder in the renovation industry, I have created many beautiful spaces for clients, both interior and exterior. As a designer, I put a lot of time, thought, and consideration into all my designs. This project was being no different. I think about safety, aesthetics, functionality, cost, and applicable building codes. For example, when I was designing my backyard last summer, I considered planting trees for privacy. But unfortunately, tree roots will damage pool liners over time. I thought about cedars or shrubs, but these collect mosquitoes. So the idea of curtains made sense. I searched through the Thorold bylaw and found nothing pertaining to curtains or trellises. I understood that a permit was not required for either of these items. Seasonal curtains were the ideal choice. These are seasonal in that they go up in June and come down in September, a total of 4 months out of the year. So they are not your typical privacy screen that cannot be open or stays erect 12 months out of the year. So the curtains were custom made to be aesthetically pleasing, fit within the bylaws, and provide safety and privacy in the summer season. As a husband and a father, privacy and safety is important to me. The Me Too movement and all I hear in the news these days made me sensitive to a woman's right to feel safe. I can't put a price on how safe the curtains have made my daughter and wife feel when out by the pool. I felt it was my obligation to design a safe and fun space for all. I will demonstrate the need for the curtains in a few before and after photos. In this view of my rear deck that I showed earlier, we can see clearly into each of my neighbors' yards, before and after. In this view, you can see my south neighbor's deck. This is taken from the north corner of the seating area. With the curtains closed, privacy is provided for both parties. And this is my north neighbor's deck, taken from the south end of the pool, before and after. In this view, we have my south rear neighbor's home, showing the second-story bedroom windows. This is taken from the sun deck area of the north end of the pool, before and after. This project took 6 weeks to complete after retaining a pool permit. The neighbors were aware of what I was building. I talked with each of my adjoining neighbors because I knew it would impact them the most. Everyone was complimentary about what I was building, including the curtains. They said they loved the idea. No one expressed concern. The posts were erected a week after excavation, 5 weeks before completion. Surely, if there was a concern, someone could have said something before I had completed all the work and hung the curtains. In all that time, not one person came to me to express any concern or questions about what I was doing, even though I had encouraged discussion. I truly respect the process that the city has put in place and the efforts being made to protect everyone's privacy and allowing anonymous phone calls and letters. I understand this is to protect the privacy of all and not to cause animosity between neighbors. It should be noted that 25 letters were sent out to 25 of my neighbors asking if anyone objected to the curtains. Of the 25 neighbors, only 5 objected to them. 80% of my neighbors do not object. So I ask all of you here today, please respect and protect my family's right to privacy as well. Please understand that if these curtains are removed, that my family and close neighbors will be stripped of privacy. The curtains themselves measure 10 feet and can be opened or closed at any time. The trellis measures 11, which is decorative of its own and supports the curtains during the summer season. Moving the trellis in the extra 2 feet, as suggested in the minutes, would create a safety hazard around my pool deck, leaving the structure 1 foot away from the edge of the pool. Not to mention that it would be next to impossible to do. Therefore, if I had to pertain to this setback, it would eliminate the trellis altogether. Please consider that even if I moved them back the extra 2 feet, as shown in these artistic renders, would it make that much of a difference to bylaw section 3 privacy screens, thus protecting my family's privacy? Thank you.
Excuse me. Do we have any questions for Paul or Fran? Go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You stated that you had to apply for a permit for the pool?
That's correct.
When you applied for the permit for the pool, did you have them as part of your site plan?
The curtains, yes.
Yes. They were part of the site plan?
Part of the plan.
And you were given a building permit?
That's
Or
correct.
were you
And-
told then that you had to adjust where they were as far as
I had
side yard or setback?
No, I had a permit, and I had inspections, and the inspections were completed. And as you've seen, the posts were put up before final inspections.
When you had a
comment was
when you had a
actually-
final inspection, did
Yes.
they tell you what you were doing was not in compliance with the city
No.
bylaw?
Actually, the building inspector that came that day was impressed by what I did, and actually asked me if did the design work for the backyard. I had told him it was myself. Then he continued, said, Paul, if you don't mind, would you be interested in designing my own backyard for me?
Okay, that's regardless of the point. I'm not interested in that, sorry.
Okay.
But you had stated that you were in the business, so obviously you've been in the business. So when you applied for the permit, the city gave you the okay, you were never
Correct.
objected to?
That's correct.
When did this problem start to arise?
This happened 2 weeks after completion of the project.
When did the city notify you that you weren't longer in compliance with the bylaw?
The same day the anonymous phone call went in.
What was the date, do you know?
Do you have the date, hon?
January the 31st.
January 31st.
Sorry, July the 31st.
Can I ask questions to you, Mr. Mayor, to the director of our chief building official?
Yes, you can.
Through you, Jason, if we were to approve the project and no objection's been made and we give the person and the final inspection's been done, can we now go back on the individual after seeing it as an oversight?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Through the pool permit application process, the permit is for the surrounding fence on the outside, not the trellis. The trellis wouldn't be looked at in any way at that time. I unfortunately don't have a copy of the site plan that was submitted, so to verify whether or not it was shown and whether or not the height was shown at the time on that site plan, so I don't have that information. But it wouldn't have been a part of the formal review for the pool itself.
Not that I don't believe you or anything, but you know, that in regards to having a picture of a site plan to see if it was on the site plan or not, and then seeing that you obviously got a final inspection certificate?
correct, yes.
That's stamped by the city?
Yes.
So, you know, I'm not wanting to make a decision tonight based on that, because I want to see whether or not the proper if it was submitted and that was part of the site plan, and then if we did
The
give them
report
a.
can be referred back, so when we get to it. We're not
Okay.
at that point yet. We're still asking questions.
Yeah, still asking questions. Okay, this time I got no further questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Counselor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe this question is for Jason. What is the height bylaw on fences? I thought it was no higher than 7 feet with respect to pools.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the fence bylaw does cover two different types of structures. A fence, which is allowed to be at the property line with a maximum height in a residential zone, maximum height of 6.5 feet. Or also it regulates privacy screens, which are allowed to be up to a maximum of 9 foot, 9.5 inches. But they're required to be set back they have to be a minimum of 4 feet or 1.2 meters from the property lines.
Technically, the trellis poles are higher than what the permit allows.
So a permit is not required for this type of structure. However, the bylaw regulations still apply. So the structure is approximately, I might be able to get Mr. Doherty indicated that they're 11 feet, so they're just it's a little more than a foot higher than what the bylaw would permit, and it's about 3 feet closer to the property line than what the bylaw would permit. That's a privacy screen.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Anyone else have any further questions? Okay, and thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
So now we'll bring forward Planning and Development Services Public Forum Meeting Minutes of February 4th, 2020. Counselor Sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Neal, that the Planning and Development Services Public Forum Committee minutes of February 4th, 2020 be hereby adopted.
Speakers. Speakers to the minutes.
Are you speaking of this, Jim?
Speakers? Who? Counselor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Got to stand up for this part. Is that in order to put them in compliance, when they went out and inspected Jason, were they told that they were not in compliance with the screen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at the time of the inspection, I'm not aware of what conversations were had at that time. I'm only aware of, once we received the complaint, the bylaw officer gone out and addressed the situation at that time. But I cannot confirm or deny what may or may not have occurred during the inspection of the pool. That I'm not aware of.
Okay. Second question is regarding the letters that went out, the 25 letters that was said, how many came back in favor and how many came back against, from your perspective?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did not see the results, but perhaps I could defer that to the city clerk's office who did receive the letters.
And I understand that you said 5 letters were against and.
Yeah, 80, so 25 were sent out, 5 came back that said they were against it, and 80% had no objections to it.
Okay.
Okay, so
8?
Eight were in support.
8 are in support.
I will reserve to defer this.
Well, you've spoken to it now, so. Any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could we defer it until we get more information?
So what I think you want to do is refer it back to staff.
Yes, refer it back to staff to get
Okay.
more information before we make a
Okay.
decision.
Is that better? Okay, so we have the motion on the floor to refer that back to staff for further information. There's no debate on a referral, so I'll ask the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so that's referred back to staff.
And it'll come back in a form of a report.
And it'll come back in the form of a report, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, I have presentation number 2, Doug Hamilton, Board Chair, to Canada Summer Games 2021. And I think I seen Matt here as well.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, sir.
So we invited Doug Hamilton here today to answer questions. Did you have any presentation to make prior to, or are you just?
I'm just here at your will, sir.
Okay. So we were asked to get some answers to questions. We said we'd bring Doug Hamilton to council, and so I'm going to open up the floor to questions. Anybody have questions? Councillor Hanley.
Definitely. Well, I'm going to ask the same question I asked before, and that is, I believe that we should know the total tender amount agreed to by the Canada Games, decide and accept it for the Canada Games facility. Do you know the amount, or could you disclose publicly the amount that was awarded to Aquacon for the Canada Games facility that's being built kitty corner to Brock University?
The amount that has been awarded to Aquacon
For that
in the
project?
tender? Yep.
That project?
In the contract is $85,580,225. That's the, in accordance with the email that I sent you, or
Yeah.
sent you a week or so ago.
Could you tell me, have all the bids been submitted in regards to all the facilities that are to be built for the Canada Games?
No. So we've got several different facilities that are being built for the Canada Games. We're in discussions with a number of municipalities regarding those projects over the next little while.
Can you tell me what projects have yet to be finalized?
The only project that has been tendered and contracted so far is Canada Games Park. Well, sorry, I should take that back. So there is equipment within the budget as well. So the basketball court at the Meridian Center we purchased for the basketball event now a year ago. The wrestling mats that were also part of our infrastructure budget were procured for the Olympic wrestling trials that happened in Niagara Falls a couple months ago. So there have been some smaller investments of the infrastructure, but in terms of the large projects, Canada Games Park is the only one that's proceeded.
Could you tell me when the other sites regarding Henley, where they're gonna build the new pool in Lincoln, the baseball diamonds and Oaks?
To
When
give
do you
you-
expect their tenders, when will those tenders be finalized and brought before for acceptance or not to be accepted? Because seeing that we're in a short time frame, there's a large project going on at the Henley.
So which projects, sir?
Well, we'll do the Henley one. Since you said that only the project that has been so far tendered out and accepted is the Canada Games facility. So I asked for the pool, for the works that are being done at Oaks Park, for the Henley Regatta, and basically for all the other facilities, because we do have a vested interest, seeing that it's public monies, and it's from this region, provincial, and the federal government.
So I'm happy to give you the update, sir, but which project would you like to start with?
Henley, when is the Henley tender going to be finalized?
So the Henley tender, we're still, we have not yet completed that tendering process. We have included as part of our tender with Aquacon. It's got a placeholder within the Aquacon contract in the event that we continue with Aquacon, but we have the right to retender that project. We're working now with the Henley rowing community to rescope, do a value engineering exercise for that, and that is proceeding as we speak.
When do you think it will be completed by?
When will the project be completed by?
The tendering process, the actual wording of the bid.
I don't know that.
So if it's 6 months before the actual Canada Games, that's when it is?
If it's, sorry, when?
If it's 6 months before the actual Canada Games are to be held, that's what it is? Like,
If that, is that, sorry, your question, if it's 6 months before the games, then it's 6 months before the games.
so as of today, you have no idea when that may close?
So no, we have to finish the project process, which is to do a value engineering, work with the rowing groups, and then make a determination as to how we proceed with that. Whether we retender it or not, we don't have to retender it. We can proceed forward with Aquacon. We can retender it. And so it's one of those projects that we are working on right now to figure out when we construct it.
So
The other thing that's important to understand is it's a project that doesn't need to happen for the games. It's what we've called a legacy project. So it's a project that we very much want to happen for the community and for the rowing community in particular. But it doesn't have to be in place for the games. So we've got time to work through and make sure that we do that project well.
So another Canada Games facilities that may in fact happen after the games itself?
It's possible that it may be completed after the games. As I said, I don't know when we're going to tender that project or when we're going to complete it. We have to work through that schedule.
How about, if I could ask you then in regards to the pool, is the pool expected to be finished that they're building in, I believe, Lincoln, West Lincoln?
So again, we're having discussions with Lincoln, and we're also having discussions with Brock University and the swimming community about what exactly is needed for the games and for Lincoln as a pool after the games. So the original plan was that a pool would be purchased, used for really for a week and a half during the games as a warm-up pool, and then used after the games by Lincoln and put into place. Our discussions with Swimming Canada and with the swim community and with Lincoln is that may not be the right plan to do. So we may be changing those plans whereby we either don't have a warm-up pool because we can accommodate the swimming without a warm-up pool, or we have just a warm-up pool because the warm-up pool that would go in place for the games might not be suitable for Lincoln. So we're working through those discussions.
Do you think some type of pool facility will be ready for the Canada Games or possibly not?
So again, we're not sure whether we need a warm-up pool for the Canada Games, so that's what we're working through with Swimming Canada and with our technical reps.
So if that would be the case, then Lincoln would not get a pool, or they still would after the fact?
So Lincoln wouldn't get a pool from us because we wouldn't need a warm-up pool for the games. But that's still in discussion with Lincoln and Swimming Canada and a number of different parties that are trying to figure out the pool.
So just one other thing. So other than the Canada Games facility park right here, no other tenders are closed and no other works have been started?
Of our major projects, that's correct.
Only this one?
Only this one, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any further questions?
Oh, that's it for now.
Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter, Mr. Hamilton, thanks for coming in tonight. I just have some questions on numbers, Mr. Hamilton, if you could clarify a few things. From the presentation on December 3rd, 2019, we were given a budget provided by your office, and the Canada Games Park Class A cost estimate came in at $80,987,000. That's a correct figure at the time?
So the budget that you're referring to was a budget that was prepared by regional staff, not our office. But it includes, that 81 million includes a number of the facilities at Canada Games Park, but not all of the Canada Games Park facilities. And let me explain, sorry. It includes, for example, the site works, it includes the equipment that is within the building in some measure, but it does not include around $3.5 million of what's called FF&E, which is furnitures, fixtures, and equipment.
Yep.
So the total budget was about $84.5 million for our Class A for the Canada Games facility, including the FF&E.
Okay, so I guess my question will go to the document provided to us, the monthly summary report number 1, Canada Games Park. You're aware of this, and it talks about a contract award amount of $85,580,000.
Yes, sir.
So can you explain the discrepancy between the 80 million number, 987,000, and this number? Why the difference?
Sorry, the which number first?
The one provided to us on December 3rd, 80,987,000.
The $81 million number?
80, yeah, let's go with 81
Okay,
million.
so-
It's a lot
so-
easier. And then you provided this number.
Yes, sir.
Of 80.5 million.
Okay, so let me explain the process by which we are planning the facility. The first thing that's important to understand is that $81 million number, or the number I'm using, which is $84.5 million, was our Class A cost estimate for Canada Games Park. That included Canada Games Park and all of the FF&E, including interior and exterior scoreboards and a number of different things that goes into that. That's a cost estimate that was done by an external cost consultant for the purposes of our funding request. The next process we started was a tender process. Within the tender process and the project that was tendered to Aquacon, we'd include all of those items that were part of the Class A cost estimate. Some of those items were kept in because we thought they were better done by Aquacon. Others were kept out because we thought that they were better done by us in terms of their procurement. After we finished that process, we then entered into what's called a value engineering exercise. Your staff was actively involved with that, as were a number of you. In that value engineering exercise, we included a number of additional changes. One of those changes, for example, is you'll recall it at our December meeting, the City of Thorold and you requested that we include off-site servicing as part of our project. So that servicing was not included within the tender that was issued to Aquacon. We did, though, include that in our ultimate contract with Aquacon. Now let me explain that. So the off-site servicing is the servicing from Highway 406 that would have taken the servicing, increased the servicing from Highway 406 across Schmon, up Merrittville, into the Canada Games Park building. Remember that there was a cost estimate of about $2 million. So when we awarded the contract to Aquacon, we changed the location of that servicing so that it came up within the site, up the new road that was being built within the site. And so therefore, we awarded some of that contractual work to Aquacon as part of the tender. So that's some of the change. Other parts of the change were other things that we had not included within the tender, included Brock's temporary parking needs. Some other needs that we identified in the arenas, galvalume, which is a material that was identified by the mechanical engineers as being something we should have in the arenas. So there were a number of things that changed within the project scope. And therefore, the numbers that you're looking at, the three numbers that you can compare to were the 84.6, which is the Class A, and then the ultimate contract price of 85.5. And there's a number of different changes within there, both within the FF&E and the servicing work that I talked about.
Okay,
So it's, without going through the detail with you, they're apples and apples, but they're apples with some additions and other apples with some additions.
Okay, I know it's very complicated, and I know there's probably not an easy answer because there are quite a few numbers here. So I'll give you that. So I guess I'll ask a basic question here. Are you still, on December 3rd, I asked specifically if you were on budget, okay, for Canada Games Park, because it was a concern of mine. Are you still on budget at Canada Games Park?
We are, sir, yes. And we're on budget and we're on time.
Okay, that's great. Without anything stripped away from the contract?
No, without anything stripped away from the contract, but let me explain. So our contract, as I mentioned, was $85.6 million.
Correct.
And I take it are you familiar with cash allowances?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so about $1.6 million of that is cash allowances. We're working through those as well. So those are a difficult thing to say whether we're on budget or not. Right now, one of them has the potential to go a little bit over. Another one is well under in terms of the cash allowances that we're awarded so far.
Okay.
The other piece that's important to understand is that you'll see in the budget that we've got a contingency of around $6 million.
Bottom, sure.
We have had some change orders, and therefore there are things that are going above that number of $85 million, which is expected in a project like this. And therefore, those are starting to take up some of that contingency, but nothing significant to date.
Okay, that's good to hear. I do have another question here regarding the completion date. I was taken by surprise. I think about a week after you were here on December 3rd, I read an article in the Standard, and it mentioned that the ice plants would not be ready, therefore the rinks would not be ready for a September hockey season. When were you aware of that? When did that come into light?
So our construction's, well, it was part of our value engineering exercise, so staff and the group collectively are well aware of that. But in terms of our construction contract, we've imposed what are called liquidated damages. Liquidated damages are a penalty in the event that the Aquacon does not reach certain milestones. The milestone that we've set in the contract, there's a couple, but the ones that we've imposed liquidated damages against are the facilities that are required to be ready for the games. Mm-hmm. Those have to be ready by mid-July of 2021. Aquacon's contract and their schedule, excuse me, the schedule they're working to would see construction of the whole facility complete by October. Our contract requires that they be done by December.
Okay, but so I'll go back to my question. I'll rephrase it then. Were you aware of this on December 3rd, that we wouldn't have ice rinks for the fall of 2021?
So I'm not sure that we won't. I do know that we didn't impose it in a contract, and so it was discussed as part of the teams that we would have handover potentially in December of 2021 of the facility as an end date, with the hope that it happened earlier. So that's been part of the discussion since the summer, with staff, with the senior leadership team. That's
okay,
been.
so some around here knew that was a possibility.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know it, so I was kind of taken by surprise, and so were a lot of other people, and that's why I'm asking that question, because it does impact our city and our plans going forward.
Yes, I understand. So yes, there were many aware, and I wasn't aware that you weren't one of them.
Okay, I wasn't aware. Thank you. Before I sit down, I want to make sure I don't have any more questions. I kind of have a comment, but I'll phrase it as a question.
Okay.
So I hope you can appreciate, Mr. Hamilton, that I really didn't need you to come here tonight. I think council just wants to be updated with numbers going forward, knowing that we're on budget and on time, and hopefully you would agree that you could provide that to us in the future in the form of reports like this one.
So I'm flattered, sir. So you'll know that your staff, you have a very capable staff. You have a very capable CAO, a very capable mayor who've been attending our regular meetings. You have a very capable planning and building department. We're having regular meetings every 2 weeks with representatives from Thorold, and we're having senior leadership group meetings every month, which are meeting with the project manager. But if if your staff aren't getting you all of the information, or you want to hear it directly from me, then, sir, I'd be prepared to come and repeat what they're already telling you.
Great. Again, I don't think we need you here unless council wants you here, but as long as the information can be provided through you to staff and then to us,
So,
rather than a one-on-one.
in terms of going forward, we have, with respect to Canada Games Park, we have a project manager that has been engaged by the consortium partners. Everybody's contributing. They're meeting with all of us every 2 weeks. We're meeting with the mayors on a monthly basis. We're also meeting as part of a steering committee with the province and the federal government. So there's a lot of discussions happening. All of that information is being shared, as is the first project management report that you've got in your hands, I think, that you referred to a moment ago. There are also, Aquacon is having bi-weekly site meetings. Those are generating minutes. We're distributing those to everybody who's a consortium partner. So we're all getting all of the same information, and we're, at this point, happy with all of the information that we're receiving.
Okay. And I guess my final question is, I've had people ask what it is that's being built, and I know the answer, but maybe you can answer it. If they want to see drawings, they want to see what this is going to look like, do you know where they could see those?
So we've got some information on our website now at niagara2021.ca, and we're looking to update that and provide some aerial photographs and some other additional information in the very near future. But there's already information on the website.
Great. I appreciate your answers, Mr. Hamilton.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Is there anyone else? You've already
Just one more.
spoken. Wait, I just want to get everyone else before. Go ahead, Councillor Sens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thanks, Mr. Hamilton, for coming again. Appreciate
sir.
the update. I have kind of a question to ask you if we can, I know it's early, but we're losing the White Arena, and it was named after somebody, and through tradition, I was wondering if the two new arenas, if it was possible, if we could name one of them the White, and St. Catharines is losing arena, if they could, keep the tradition going and name one of their arenas the other. If you could throw that out at meetings and see if that's possible, that would be a great honor for us to keep the name.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll keep that in mind.
Any further questions? Councillor Hanley, you had another question.
Just one more money question. If you could tell me, I appreciate you two coming tonight, and Councillor Longo more or less spoke to the imminent of it as being informed and that stuff, and we found out a lot of information tonight, and I appreciate that too myself. Could you tell us what the Canada Games Host Society's capital budget is for the entire project, if I can ask?
So our capital budget is, you recall that in the funding agreements that we went through in the summer, it's about $105 million of funding commitments, in addition to about $6 million that we're trying to raise through sponsorship for so about $110 million.
Thank you. So we're on target to what it was originally on December the 3rd.
We are working towards that number, yes.
Thank you.
Thing I can say, and if you want, and that's why they're working through the other projects, so when you add them all together, it's going to come in on the budget that's the pot of money that's there. Am I correct when I say?
You're correct. So we're very much so. There's no project ever that comes in exactly on numbers. Some projects are going to come in a little over, some projects are going to come in a little under. We're balancing those as a continuous process. So we're trying to work it through. As well, we've still got to sort out the $6.5 million in sponsorship. Much of that is naming rights for the facilities, and so we're still trying to work that through and to generate those monies. The more monies we can generate from sponsorship, the greater amount of FF&E, which is equipment we can put into the facilities and equip them the way we'd all like them to be. So we're not planning to go over budget, but we are trying to generate as much revenue as we can so that we can make these facilities as best equipped as we can make them.
Okay, is there any further questions for Mr. Hamilton? I want to thank you for coming tonight, and as well for the council and for the community. We're putting all this information on the website, so when we get it, it's disseminated to the public, and all that information will be available. Thanks once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all.
Okay, I've got motions for support, nothing. Statement by councillors. Up first, I have Councillor Sentence talking about delivery of Niagara this week.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I think I'll speak on it. We all had a phone call, I believe, the other day about the papers at the end of driveways and it being a nuisance. I would like to speak further to the paper that I personally tried to cancel the paper for 3 different people, seniors who find it troublesome to get to the end of the driveway, especially in winter, and it keeps showing up. It never goes away. I have tried to cancel my own because I don't read it, and it just goes into my recycle bin. And I've tried to nicely do that half a dozen to 10 times to ask them to not bring it. And I know Councillor Neal spoke about this early on in council, and we had someone coming that came to council to talk about it, but I don't think since Councillor Neal spoke, it's changed. So I would like to put a motion forward, if I could, to ask Niagara this week, president or the manager, to come to meet with the mayor's office to discuss ways to stop circulation to people who don't want it, and to have the paper and to have it stop the distribution of the paper at the end of driveways where it becomes a nuisance for snow plows, for people trying to get there. And that's my motion, please.
Can I get a seconder? Councillor Hanley. Speakers to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the clerk. Do we not address this and put a recommendation forward in regards to the delivery of it? I believe it might have been Councillor Longo may have put a motion to the floor that we were to look into them actually doing mailbox deliveries. And if they didn't do mailbox deliveries, then we were going to come back to this council and actually recommend that they actually cease delivering them in Thorold because of the problems we were having with them trashed. I believe we may have passed a motion similar to that.
I don't know I know there was a motion. I don't know the exact language.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the motion was that the mayor's office be directed to draft a letter, which they've done twice, to Niagara this week addressing those concerns.
Yeah.
So we will, with the motion, we'll do that again, but this one now, we have to move to the next level on this issue. There's no question, Councillor Hanlon.
Okay.
I got Councillor DeRose and then Councillor Neal.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Sentence for bringing this up. I received similar calls. People were irate, and they had good reason to. Apparently, sometimes a snow blower can be damaged with these thrown at the end of the driveways. I've actually called them to deliver to my house because they stopped a year and a half ago when we got a new driveway. And a couple calls, but I've called for people last week and they don't get back to you. So I'm a little bit disillusioned by the good nature unwritten agreement between Niagara this week and Thorold. And I honestly think it makes our city look cheap with all these littered bags of newspapers that a lot of people don't want. And I would almost include in the bylaw that it shouldn't be allowed for people to throw. If the decision is made after staff looks at it, Mr. Mayor, that maybe this should not be allowed at people driving by. I would think it's a hazard because they're actually distracted driving while they're throwing these things out the window of their car. So I have great concerns, as Councillor Sentence stated. Thank you.
Councillor Neal. Thank you, Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, we've met with them once already, at least, probably more than once. And but we can meet with them again with the motion being put forward. But I think we should look at the bylaws that we can put in place. It can't be specific to the particular newspaper throwing the thing, but it could be in general that no papers be thrown out in the driveways and things of that nature. And the second thing is there any mechanism that we can do to fine the newspaper? Maybe take a look at that also. Take a look at some of the options.
So we have that motion on the floor. Would you like to add a friendly amendment to get a staff report alongside of that of some future options?
That would be perfect. I would do that.
Do we have a seconder for, do you accept that friendly amendment? He does.
Thank you.
Okay, so we don't need a seconder because, okay. So now, we have a motion on the floor. Did you want to speak to that motion? Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I do remember the last time that this came up, I did also share the opinion of Councillor Jerose with the distracted driving, so I'm just wondering if we could contact the police as well and report the drivers, because it used to be that when they did this years ago, they would have somebody in the passenger seat that would throw out newspapers, but now it's the driver, and I've witnessed them nearly hit people on the sidewalk and swerve around parked cars, and so I do agree. So I don't know if we could add that as another.
Well, that'll be part of a report we'll ask, but what we'll do is we will have the meeting, we will express concern as well. We'll get Jason to produce a staff report addressing some of the issues that come up in these discussions.
Perfect, thank you.
Is that okay? Are you okay with that, Jason?
Yes, that's not a problem.
Okay, so everybody good with that? We've got the motion with the friendly amendment. Any further speakers to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Up next, I've got Councillor Neal to discuss. He's got two items, but the first one's e-scooters. How will we approach this matter?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As we all know, that the provincial government has a pilot project being started, or has already started on January the 1st, about allowing e-scooters on our roads. And I know that I don't hope that we don't have them on the roads, but if we do, then we're going to have problems with accidents. And I didn't realize that we do have a committee of different communities involved in figuring out a way of handling the e-scooters. So maybe just a comment from Jeff Holman in regarding what's being done about the e-scooters.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and to Councillor Neal, thanks for bringing this up. Our transportation master plan has identified e-scooters as part of our active transportation in our community, and so there will be a recommendation coming forward to consider a proper bylaw that would help people using e-scooters to get around the community. But we also recognize that it's not just within our community, it's between communities. And the city of St. Catharines has recently reached out to their neighbors, ourselves included, to talk about how we might come up with some rules that would apply, and maybe some design standards for sidewalks, bike lanes, marking, signage, that type of thing, that would be helpful not just to motorists but also anyone using an e-scooter. So we'd hope to have this information probably by the end of the summer. And you may also recall too, there was a request from the downtown BIA looking at other electronic devices like segways. So hopefully we can capture all of that information for you and have something by the end of the summer.
Thank you. So therefore, I would move that we have a report being brought back by the end of August about this.
So that's a motion to bring that. Do you want to second that, Councillor Hanley? Okay, that report come back by the end of August. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And now you're up for recognition of Thorold Movie Pioneer.
Yes, as I think everybody's got a letter or email from our former mayor, Don McMillan, regarding a movie pioneer in our community, and we should recognize these people when they come through our particular fair city. And the recognition is of a movie pioneer, and his name is Helmut Kalmuth. He was president of the Exelon Company for a number of years here in Thorold, and he developed a process that led to the first Hollywood feature film shot in 3-strip Technicolor based on his technology in 1935, and they're still being used today. We need to recognize his achievements, so therefore, Mr. Mayor, I would move that we send this to the LACAC committee for further review to bring back a recommendation on how to recognize this person.
Okay, so I have a motion to send that to LACAC so they can come up with a recommendation and bring it back to council. I have a seconder from Councillor Sentence. Is there anyone that wants to speak on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now I have Counselor Hanley, and the first item is Canada Games. Counselor Hanley.
Well, Ken, the games, I just say, he answered very well, so I'm not gonna really make some comments, but other than, I think we need to be further updated or more frequently updated. I believe since May of 21st of 2019, we basically only received 2 updates.
Well, you should be receiving
Now frequently, but.
should be every 2 weeks now, am I correct?
Yeah.
To the CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as you all know that on Friday I've sent out an email to all council that anything that we will receive from Canada Summer Games, we have put a portal on our website and we are going to upload that items there. There are site meetings that are happening with them. There are project team meetings. There is a senior leadership meeting. Whatever meeting minutes are available to us, we are uploading it on the website so everyone has the current information.
And it will also be emailed to the council.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, email it to me personally would be
Yeah.
great too, even though I did look over it and I did see that there's quite a few pendants there and it is knowledgeable. It come up a little late. We should have been doing this a little while ago and that stuff, and I'm glad to see that he was here today. So that's it for the Canada Games, really.
And
We'll
then
let
I
it go at
have
that.
Counselor Hanley on community project. And
So community projects, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a notice of motion forward tonight to council because I'm wanting to do a project in Port Robinson East this year, similar to what I done in McAdam Park in 2016, is to erect a washroom facility. Our Director of Finance gave me some information, so as this time that people can be recognized for their fundraising, we didn't go through it, but I did have to get an official approval by this council in order to do that, so I'm gonna put a notice of motion forward. I will come back at the next council meeting, I'll give you a detailed list as what's gonna be curtailed. I'm gonna give all the councilors, I'll give them drawings of the actual building and some site plans as regard to plumbing and whatnot, and what our projected goal is. And I will give a list of that time of donors, and in consultation with Maria and that stuff, I'll make sure that we go about it the proper way as we did past time. And also be bringing forward a waiver. I had a waiver that we had formulated from the city in regards to liability, and it went very well, and we got a lot of great interest, so when it comes up to notice of motion.
you're
I'll put
gonna
a-
do that next under notice of motion,
Yes.
Counselor Hanley.
Yep.
Okay. That's it, under statement by counselor, so you might as well stay there and do your notice of motion.
So I want to put I'd like to put a notice of motion forward in regards to, whereas I could say that the city of Thorold support my endeavors and the endeavors of volunteers to erect a washroom facility within the Port Robinson East area
In
at
the
the
park?
park. And, I can give you a little brief analysis right now in consultation already with Mr. Santos, and I'll know they'll be talking with Jeff. We're looking at doing it in the area where that former toll house building is, because it's hydro, water, and sewer accessibility is there. So I'll give you a full accounting of what we're looking to accomplish, and if I could get council support, and how we're gonna pay for it. I'll let you
We'll
know.
look forward to your bringing that
Yeah,
at
I'll
the
bring it
next,
to the next council meeting, a notice of motion, and in that time, I will have, I'm trying, last time we were like hop, skitch, and jump, it was over a process of time, it took us 2 summers to complete it. This time, now that we've got
You're just gonna
one
jump
under
this
belt,
time.
we're just gonna jump and get it over with, that's right. So, just so you know, and hey, it's a great project, the community's excited about it, and that's stuff, I'm excited about it, and it's something that we could use out there in Port Robinson East.
It's great. So we'll look forward to that. You'll work with the city clerk on that, and we'll have that next council meeting. Okay, now we're gonna resolve into general committee, and I'd like to call to order any declarations of interest under general committee. No delegations. We have 3 consent reports. Is there a call for any reports to be brought forward from consent? Does anybody? Counselor Neal?
Yes, number PDS 2020-07.
Yeah, you want to speak to that?
Yes.
Okay,
Mr.
so.
Mayor. It's naming.
Not yet, I'll bring you up.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we have 2 other reports. Is there anyone else want to pull any reports? Seeing none, I get a motion to move consent report A and consent report C. I've got Counselor Sentence. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so consent report B, I've got a mover, which would be, Counselor Neal, do you want to move that one?
I'll move the report
And do we want to speak to the
And
report?
speaking on the report, Mr. Mayor, we're naming streets here, and I thought we originally had a list at the city with street names from people that have been recognized in the community in the past and those types of streets. And I'm just wondering why we're naming this street Springcrest Way when we have a number of other names we could put on that particular street. And I can carry this forward on other streets that were being named too.
Is there, I'll turn this over to Richard, our Acting Director of Planning. Do you have anything you want to add to that, or?
I don't really have anything to add. I do know that it has been decided to name it Springcrest Way quite some time ago. What I understand is we've been waiting for this to happen and just hasn't, we just needed to do it formally.
Okay. Do you want to speak further on that? Or are you okay with that for this particular one? I understand where you're coming from because I've had inquiries on the same issue.
I would like us to maybe have a policy in place for naming streets in our community, especially since we've got a lot of new streets coming forward. And we should be recognizing people that have made a contribution to the city of Thorold in the past.
And a lot of the heritage issues that...
Yes.
So do you want a staff report on that issue?
Yes, please. I'll move that we have a staff report.
So you got a motion for a staff report on that issue, but not affecting this particular one today. Okay, so let's do this one first, and then we'll do a motion on your staff report as well. Go ahead, Councillor Hammond.
Just to comment on that, I agree with Councillor Neal 100%. You know, we have designated areas. Example, we're building that new development where the old Exelon property will be. Who else to have on there, like the person who invented the 3D color? Have a street named after him. That's what we should be doing, you know, like Port Robinson West, we should be implementing names of the settlers that come here. We got heritage there. There's people that have been here since the 1700s that lived out there that were part of the War of 1812 and that stuff, you know, and we're a very important part of the Upper Canada and Lower Canada when it was here. And I think I agree with Councillor Neal. We need to concentrate on that and recognize people more on what the city stands for and what has accomplished over the years. You know, we got vice president of the railroad that used to live here in Thorold. You know, has he really been recognized in regards to naming a street after him? There's a lot of important individuals, and I think he's in the right direction. That's where we should be headed. Recognizing and make it distinctive, the names of the streets, recognize Thorold as the community that it is.
Okay, so first of all, you're going to move this one. Can we, the PDS 2020-07 for this particular street? Okay, any further discussion on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now, you want a staff report regarding, we have a policy. Do you want them to review the policy and make further recommendations?
Let's review the policy because it's obviously got missed.
Okay, so we're going to send it back, review the policy, and make a recommendation to council. Are you good with that? Okay. Do we need a motion?
No, yes, you do.
I need a motion for that. Councillor Decker, you going to move that? Okay. Any further discussion on that? Because we do have a policy. It's time to review it. It's from 1999, and you can review the policy and make any additional recommendation. Is everybody good with that? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Discussion reports. PWCS 2020-05, and I'll turn this over to Jeff Holman, our Director of Public Works and Community Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that council approve the payment of additional fees of up to $25,000 plus HST to Associated Engineering Limited for contract administration and inspection services required beyond the original scope.
Okay, can I get a mover for that report? Councillor Sentence. Speakers to that report. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Operations. Is there a reason given for this $25,000 oversight or undersight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Construction contracts have a set time in which the work is to be completed. So at the beginning of this project, they would have, based on the advice of the consultant, would have been to select, I think, that 60 days. And a contractor would get charged for a working day on those days that are where the weather would permit normal construction. So in this particular case, this contractor has not been as responsive as we would have liked them to have been. And so we put them on notice that we'll be charging liquidated damages for those working days beyond the preset amount. We need, in the short term, somebody to complete the contract administration and full-time field inspection, because we're a little bit short on staff at the moment. And so it's our intention to recover the cost that we'll incur for inspection services from liquidated damages from the contractor. The hope is that we don't have to spend this money, that the contractor will realize that some things have to be finished. Obviously, some of the restoration, laying sod and that type of thing at this time of year can't be done. So we'll have to make sure that when we can expect that work to be completed, that they're on the job and finish it up on time.
Thank you. Just one more question.
Yes,
Is
go
this a
ahead.
common occurrence?
With some contractors, Mr. Mayor, I think if we lose track of the timing, then residents get upset of having to live in the construction zone with having signs and porta potties and all those types of things on the site that really don't need to be there. So it's something that it's in the contract. It's every contractor bids on it. And some municipalities aren't as aggressive. But when you have contractors that are really bidding aggressively on projects, it's important that you stay on top of that.
Thank you.
One thing I can say in what we're going through now, and this is the importance of project manager's position, which we're in the process of hiring right now. And that's one of the duties that that person would do. Am I correct when I say that?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so that is huge. Okay, any further discussion on that particular one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. PDS 2020-05. And I'll turn that over to Richard, our Acting Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that Planning and Development Services Report PDS 220-05 be received, and that official plan amendment to redesignate the subject lands from downtown to site-specific downtown designation be approved, that zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the subject lands from Central Commercial CC Zone to Central Commercial CC 22 Zone be approved, that the bylaw to implement the official plan amendment be forwarded to council for approval, that the bylaw to amend zoning bylaw amendment be forwarded to council for approval, that council direct staff to prepare an amendment to bylaw 60/2019 should the bylaw come into force and effect prior to the applicant obtaining building permits for the proposed development, and that council require no further public notice of the zoning provisions related to the site-specific parking requirement and underground parking structure setback in accordance with Section 3417 of the Planning Act.
Thank you. Can I get a mover for this report? Councillor Hanley, are you moving it?
Well, I want to discuss it, though. I'm not agreeing with it.
No, we can speak.
Oh, yeah, I'll move it, yeah.
Okay, so we got mover, speakers to the report. Councillor Hanley, go ahead.
Myself, I can't see how it is eligible for Brownfield's municipal tax incentive. I was born and raised right in that area. That area there was an orchard next to Mike's service station.
You're talking, that's the next one.
We're on
Not this
13, St. David's?
No, that's number 6. We're on number 5.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. We're on 32 and 34 Pine Street South?
Yes.
Okay.
You moved it. Do you want to speak to
Yes, okay, sorry, yes, I'm jumping ahead, okay. Yeah,
You're thinking about your washroom.
yeah. I got a lot to get off my mind. No,
Okay, anyone else want to speak to that? Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few questions, maybe staff can clarify. And it goes back to the public meeting. I read something afterwards, and I'm reading it again tonight. It refers to this project as a 32-unit residential condominium apartment building, but also it refers to it as a rental apartment building. So can somebody clarify what it actually is going to be?
Go ahead, Richard.
The intent, Your Worship, is that it would be a rental accommodation or apartment building, but the owner wants to reserve their opportunity to still use it as a condominium at some point in time in the future.
Okay, so given that, if it were a residential rental or a condominium building, would staff's recommendation be any different over one or the other?
No.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure. And just to clarify one other thing, our new comprehensive zoning bylaw, although it's under appeal, would allow for this?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, great. And I guess my last question, it's always a concern of mine with this type of downtown intensification and build, and it has to do with active transportation, basically walking on sidewalks while things are being built. Would this be addressed in the site plan or at this point to make sure that there be limited disruption to the sidewalks and the public's ability to utilize active transportation?
Through to you, Your Worship. I had an opportunity to talk to the chief building official about the requirements for making sure there's clear pathways or walkways if there's sidewalks there. If the construction is going to be within 4.5 meters, then there will have to be a covered walkway.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer all your questions?
Yes, it does.
Any further questions? I got Councillor Decker and then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question. I wanted to bring it up at the last council meeting, but now that this is brought up again. So now that we are possibly going to be getting another unit there, that's going to increase traffic flow, and we only have the four-way stops there, so this could be a concern maybe that we're going to have to put traffic lights there.
I'll let Jeff answer that, but my understanding is that corner has been earmarked under the Transportation Master Plan for as a trouble area that they're looking at.
You're right, Mr. Mayor. That intersection is very wide, and we need to look at the markings and need to look at the traffic controls. I think there's an outstanding council resolution to that effect.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the appropriate staff member. I just had a question about parking. I heard actually something be said that, something about the parking, but I kind of missed it. But I see here there's 13 spaces and there's 30 units, but I don't know if that includes the underground parking.
I'll turn that over to Richard to answer.
Yeah. Thank you, Your Worship. The proponent has proposed 42 parking spaces, of which 32 would be in the underground and 10 would be above. That number was provided to council at last meeting. The actual requirement of the zoning bylaw would actually be less, but since that number has been what's shown on the site plan and it was the number provided to council, we've decided to put it in the bylaw.
Perfect, thank you. And the other question I had, I heard you say something about that we don't need a public meeting, so maybe I just misheard you, but if you could explain, please.
Certainly, through you to through the worship, this is just a requirement under the Planning Act that if because we're making some small changes to the bylaw that weren't necessarily identified in the notice or whatever, but were discussed at the public meeting, we just need to have a resolution from council that would say that there's no further public meeting, that it's okay to make those small changes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. PDS 2020-06, And Jim, this is where you're gonna come out. Counselor Hanley, can I get a mover for that one? I got Counselor Neal.
I'll move.
I'm not letting you move that one because you moved the last one. Anyways, it's been moved by Counselor Neal, but, I'll let, our Acting Director of Planning, Richard, read that through, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendation is that Planning and Development Services Report PDS 220-06 be received, and that a bylaw authorizing the cancellation of city taxes for 13 St. David Street West and a Brownfields Municipal Tax Incentive Program agreement between the City of Thorold and the owner of 13 St. David Street West be brought forward to Council for approval, and that a copy of the report PDS 220-08 and the executed bylaw on the Brownfields Municipal Tax Incentive Program agreement be forwarded to the region with the request that the region cancel the regional portion of the taxes as per the agreement. And we have the Manager of Planning, Denise Landry, here to speak to the report.
Okay, and I'll ask Denise to come up to the podium, please.
Through the mayor, I can answer any questions that council has.
Okay, we'll start with Counselor Hanley.
In order, through you, Mr. Mayor, in order to be eligible for brownfield, does it not have to be a former industrial site?
Through the mayor, because the property is adjacent to an auto body shop and also adjacent to a former industrial use, contaminants often migrate underground to adjacent properties. So through the phase 1 and the phase 2 environmental site assessment, it was determined that this property does need remediation and cleanup. So it is in fact as defined as a brownfield.
I only ask that, Mr. Mayor, if I can comment on, is that I grew up in the area where Mike's service station was when the extension of John Street when I was a child, and growing up until my 20s, 30s, and there was a former lockmaster's house there that the Langor, the Weir, and the Curley families lived in, and that property was an orchard, and so was Mike's service station at the time. So contaminated, just, I find it unusual that, the amount of contamination, whatever that may be found there, that these lands could now be classified as brownfield. Just that I was surprised, because me growing up, that was an orchard there, and it used to run up or right up behind the property that sits on St. David's Road, and actually used to come out on Pine Street across from where the Mahaichucks and that stuff lived at one time. It was all orchard in there, and how it's contaminated just mystifies me. I wouldn't support it myself, but if that's what staff recommends, I guess that's what we'll do.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Counselor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. How much contamination has to be found on a site for this to apply? Like, I could understand there needing to be maybe minor remediation, but at what point does it hit that classification?
Through the mayor to the councilor, are you referring to be eligible for the program? So we don't have a minimum cost for this particular program. Any properties that require remediation are eligible, and they have to be within the community improvement area, which is downtown and around downtown.
Wow. I don't know if I can make a comment on that, but maybe we need to adjust that program to be a little bit more specific, because if we're giving huge tax incentives, then there should be, I would think, some level of cost on the individual's part to remediate before we just say you don't have to pay taxes. That's my opinion. I don't know if we can make a motion for that, or.
I think that program's just been modified, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead.
Through the mayor, the whole CIP program for the city was revised in 2016. So they only receive the tax cancellation while they're actually doing the work. If they cease to do the work and stop, we no longer cancel their taxes, and they have to, I think, even back pay their taxes. So the work has to be completed for that to happen, and it's for a limited period of time also.
Yes, I understand that, but I'm thinking, for example, I had a piece of property where they had, like a tank put in for an oil tank for furnaces, and it had to be remediated, and so, I don't know, it was a few $1,000s, but I'm just saying there should be some sort of limit in place, because then that means I could have applied to the city at the time to have a tax break. I just don't think that's appropriate. I think there should be a dollar amount attached to that. And it might be revised in 2016, but maybe we need to revise it again.
Through the mayor to the councillor, I think the intent of the program is that we do have brownfield properties and we want to get them remediated and developed because they're within our downtown area and that's where we want development. We do intend on doing a review, hopefully, of the CIP program next year, and we'll definitely take that into consideration.
And I can tell you that the region is doing their CIP review right now. I don't think it would come into effect till 2022. But brownfields is the number one. Brownfields and affordable housing are the two key areas that staff's been asked to look at. I can tell you that from a regional perspective. And region and the city work together on those programs. Go ahead, Councillor Henry.
And just so I could just follow up to what Councillor Wilson was saying, maybe we need to have some parameters in regards to contamination amounts, and because you know what, if there's no set limit, I don't believe there is. If there's just some type of contamination, acid rain will make land contaminated. So therefore, everybody would be eligible. So there's got to be some type of parameter set in there saying this how much contamination needs to be, so many parts per million, whatever, not just a minuscule amount. And here I found some, we need some parameters in there. I know we want to get these properties developed, but it's to the point where you just need to apply and you'll get the tax incentive that you need. But so there has to be some type of threshold or parameters put in there, I would believe, when they do a revisal of it.
Is there any further questions for Denise? Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Mr. Mayor, can I put a motion on the floor to have that revised or have that reviewed for staff?
You can, but not pertaining to this motion. This motion on the floor tonight is regarding the existing policy.
Yeah, that's fine. But
Okay.
can I do it now or do I have to do another?
You should do a notice of motion for that. You should
Okay.
do a notice.
I'll do that then,
Okay.
thank you.
And you should find out first, get do the background with staff to find out what exactly is in place and the parameters of the existing plan.
Okay.
Okay? So we have PDS 2020-06. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. CC 2020-12, appointment to council boards and committees, and I'll turn this over to our city clerk, Donna Delvecchio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Each councillor has packages for two committees we're looking for appointments for. So the first one is that we have one application to the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management, and we have one vacancy.
Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Longo.
So move the applicant.
Any speakers to that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So William Klassen has been appointed to the committee. And the second one is for Active Transportation Advisory Committee. We have 3 vacancies and 1 application this evening.
Can I get a mover for that application? Councillor Decker. Speakers to that application? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So Dawn Tuckwell has been appointed.
Okay. Then you make sure those get back to the city clerk, please. Okay. CC 2020-13, bed and breakfast licensing, and again, our city clerk, Donna Delvecchio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation at the city clerk's report, CC 2020-13, be received for information purposes, and that an amended bed and breakfast bylaw be presented to council this evening for approval.
Can I get a mover for that report? Councillor Hanley. Speakers to the report? Councillor Longo.
Just have a question for the clerk, just a matter of interest. How many bed and breakfasts are there in the city of Thorold?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have 1.
1. Okay, thank you.
Was recently sold.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. I learned something tonight. Okay. Any speakers to that report? Any further speakers to that report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we're going to go back into regular council to do the council committee and board meeting minutes. Minutes to review for information purposes. Councillor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neal, that council adopt those items approved by the General Committee on February 18th, 2020.
Anyone have any errors or omissions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we'll move back into general committee, and we're gonna go in camera. In accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is related to proposed disposition of land by municipality and litigation, including matters before an administrative tribunal. Could I have a motion to move into closed session? I got Councillor Decker. To discuss Chief Administrative Officer's verbal report, re 47 Front Street North. Director of Planning and Development verbal report, rezoning bylaw LPAT appeal. To adopt the minutes of the in-camera meeting minutes of February 4th, 2020. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we'll now move in camera.